Hello everyone, it's Melanie here with Vintage Hill Studio. I'm so glad you joined me today. I have a fun card for you and I have first time using liquid watercolors, and look at what you can do. I'll be making my own background paper using this watercolor pad and these Color Splash liquid watercolors. The Sizzix Impresslits 3D embossing folder, a cup of water, a mini mister, and a flat brush. So let's get started. Here is the star of the show. This is the Impresslits, which does embossing and die cutting in one pass. You could see the detail in that folder. And these are those Color Splash liquid watercolors that I found on Amazon. They are a very brilliant color. It comes in a set of 6. It was very inexpensive. And my little Master's Touch watercolor pad. So let's get going with this project. I've got a mini mister, my brush, and a cup of water and a little paper towel, and that is all we need. You can see I'm going to leave this on my watercolor pad and just get my brush really saturated. You want to make sure your bristles are really wet. Get that put down all on your paper. No form or fashion needed here, just wetting this paper. And I'm going to hold this up to the light for you to see the sheen, and when I do that it also shows me that I've missed a little area near that gum line there of my pad. So I'm just going to really get this saturated up, and then becomes the most mesmerizing fun part of all, this liquid watercolor. Again, I've never used this before, but it's just kind of draws you in the way this bleeds on the paper and blooms out, just following the water that you've added all on your paper. Now, I have seen where some people like to dry the colors in between adding different shades, and you can certainly do that. But I wanted to do this wet on wet because I want these colors to really blend together to create this beautiful fall background paper. Yeah, this was just so much fun watching these colors blend. You see what's happening there between the reds and yellows, what we learned in school there, making its own little shades of orange. And then because I'm getting near to the edge, I'm going to bring over just a scrap piece of paper and add a few more colors to my background here. You can see these liquid watercolors are fairly vibrant. So for an inexpensive little starter set, I'm very pleased with this Color Splash watercolor. These are made in the United States, and through Amazon they shipped in just a couple of days. So I couldn't wait to get started with playing with these. Now my paper is still fairly wet, but I do like to use a mini mister that's filled with water, and it just gives me little spritzes of water to help move this color around. You can see it just helps get that moving a little bit more. Now here I'm adding a green. The only thing that would maybe be helpful here is using a pipette for smaller drops if you wanted to do that. But again, I was just experimenting with this new set and I used it right out of the bottle. Now as you can see, when this green moves into the reds and oranges, it's going to get a little bit muddy, and that's okay. I just want a very organic looking background here for these leaves. So I'll just tilt my paper and get that moving, get those colors to bleed together and blend and do their thing. And then any areas that it didn't quite get down to, I'm just going to use a brush to kind of fill in those white spots. Not very much to it at all. And here's 2 additional backgrounds that I did because this was so much fun. So you can see I've got different color variations and a lot to work with here for my leaves. Now to use the 3D Impresslits, I will be using my Sizzix Big Shot with this extended platform. It requires only 1 plate over the top because these folders are really thick 3D folders. So you want to make sure you don't put too much pressure on your actual die cutting machine or embossing machine. So make sure you follow the sandwich that's needed. Now look at these leaves. Can you see the veining in here? I'm hoping that my camera is catching all of the detail of these leaves. They even have a little concave area in the back where it's embossed. So there's my whole set of beautiful colorful leaves from those 3 backgrounds that I made. And then just to add a little more detail, I'm going to use the Distress Ink and Vintage Photo and a finger dauber, and I'm only going to concentrate the color down at the bottom of each leaf and just lightly across that veining. I don't want to cover up my beautiful watercolor background. I'm just adding a little bit more dimension by adding a deeper color there at the base of these leaves. If you have any spots that came out too bright for you, you can certainly use a little heavier hand with your Vintage Photo for that. So here's a comparison of the inked leaf and the non-inked leaves. And there are all of my leaves that have been inked with the Vintage Photo. Okay, now I'm getting ready to put these beautiful babies on a card. So this is how I'm going to make my card. I used an ivory background and this Doris embossing strip. My card base is 5x7, and then I off camera have embossed the ivory strip and backed that with a dark brown piece of paper, and that's going to go here a little to the left of my card. And I'll look at what leaves that I may want to add here to the front. I'm only going to be working in a number of 3 here, limiting it. I can get a lot of cards made with all these leaves that I've got done. I'm going to add a little sentiment here at the bottom, which reminds me, when I looked at the sentiment, I thought, okay, what is the real difference between autumn and fall? Well, it turns out, of course, that those are interchangeable terms, and actually autumn is used more in the UK, and the word fall is used more in the United States. Now, what I found out was that the word autumn was thought to have been introduced into the language in the 1300s, and fall more so in the 1500s. If that makes any difference, autumn came first. So there's just a little trivia on the difference between autumn and fall. So let's get back to our card. I love to use raffia on my fall or autumn cards. I just think it's a natural element that lends itself well for things like these leaves. So I'll quickly tie a little bow and get that put on the front of my card. Again, just adding a little level of dimension. It doesn't make the card bulky. It just gives it a little more interest. I'll get that glued right there at the base of all 3 of my leaves, and then I'm bringing over a little bit of that scrap background paper that I made, and I'm using a regular hole punch here, and I'm just going to punch out several of these little dots. And I thought about using these on this embossing strip, following some of the dots that are in that embossing, and that did add quite a bit of extra color to my card, but I changed my mind and decided to use it off on each side of the embossing strip, and I like that a lot better. It still adds a little bit of color, but it doesn't take away from that cluster of leaves. So there is my finished card for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you'll get inspired to try some liquid watercolor. It was so much fun, and what a wonderful outcome from the liquid watercolor for making some very organic looking backgrounds. Thank you so much again for dropping by. This is so much fun for me. I love the new subscribers that have joined, and if you haven't joined in, please feel free to subscribe. See you next week, and happy crafting!